with Christian Homestead is going live. Um, I just wanted to run through a couple notes that I had taken. Um, to get President Oaks presiding, there's a worldwide choir. We have the first Black 70 uh, presidency of the 70. Christian Zybarth sent that to me. The choir, the women were dressed in white like brides, the men wearing red ties. Um, Elder Holland's theme I put is like prayer. God is listening. Did you guys see his eyes? Very, very intense eyes. Um, his wife fulfilled the measure of her creation. That reminded me of what President Nelson said at the funeral, that Sister Holland was a celestial woman. President Holland uh, alluded that there was a vision or dream or admonition from the Lord where he was admonished to have urgency in his ministry, um, for warning and for comfort to the world. Thou shalt bear record of my name, warning voice, let not the world slumber because of thy speech. So it's be bold, speak up. Take up your cross, an apostolic voice of warning. He's felt prayers, grateful for prayers, heaven's intervention on his behalf. God answers. No limits to prayer. Pray always. Servant prayer availeth much. Prayers are motions of a hidden fire. If we feel like we don't want to pray, then pray. I know everybody's going to go over this elsewhere, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. The refined faithful. Then our faith must be tested and refined. The sister spoke on her theme seemed to be symbolism and covenant, and that's what we got is a lot of symbolism and covenant. It reminded me of one of uh, uh, President Nelson, formerly Elder Nelson's talk. I think it wasn't really a talk in general conference because all I had was the written stuff. It was like back from the 90s, and it was all about symbolism. And so this talk reminded me a lot of that article of Elder Nelson's symbolism in the 90s. Those not seeking deeper meaning will not know. Our love is a symbol of covenants to God. Covenant prepares us better to meet God. Our relationship with God is closer with covenants. Symbolic actions, covenants. We become a symbol of covenant with Christ in the world. Priesthood holders symbolically give bread and water. They're symbols of Christ, and they're giving of the bread and the water, as Christ at the Last Supper gave of the bread and water, which represented himself as well. The elder who spoke after uh, spoke specifically on working on testimonies, shared some of Joseph's story, and rays of light, not pillars. That this theme of line upon line, I think, was also coming in. Theme of line upon line. And he mentioned that this pillar does not come all at once. It's rather raise upon raise upon raise until ultimately we're prepared to be God, that we have a more fuller pillar of light. Him press forward, saints, and don't give up. It's going to be tough. And then Elder Ulysses Suarez, themes to me seem to be like confidence and again symbols and covenants. So we must wax strong in confidence, be confident in our covenant making and keeping covenants. Talked about temples being built as symbol of the Lord's kingdom. Covenants are a symbol of the Lord upon the earth. Covenants strengthen us. We need, quote, covenant confidence, close quote. That seems to be a theme. Perpetually preparing, temple bound. I love that connection with temple bound, um, because as missionaries or members of the church, when we're ministering, we're asking ourselves, what is the next covenant for an individual, and what is the next covenant step? What is that barrier? Um, be prepared to have spiritual insights. We also must have expectation. Who we must expect. I think it was other one. Expect uh, and believe in angels and miracles. Believe in the prayer. Believe in faith. Believe, and this echoes what Moroni says. And don't stop believing in miracles. Angels will come to minister. Believe that the Lord will guide you. The elder who spoke after, I felt this spoke very strongly to me, because he talked about integrity and Jesus as the exemplar. Um, as many of you know, I'm running for our county sheriff, and last night was the first smear campaign levied against me, and I was notified by a couple people telling me that there's stuff going on online and that I couldn't see, and people were trying to put out a smear campaign on me. And so I kind of smiled because I'm like, I've got all the paperwork right here. So I'm like, they're fishing for me to lower my standards and integrity and try to find a contradiction in something. And I noticed, I'm like, this person did it anonymously, but I think I know who it's coming from, because the things that this person is saying has only specifically been mentioned in that way to one particular person. So I'm just gonna let it go because I trust the Lord, and I'm gonna do the right thing. And if people choose to favor the character of nastiness, then that's what they choose. Just like King Benjamin says, choose righteousness, you get righteousness. Choose wickedness, you get wickedness. So I believe very strongly that people should get what they choose. Um, but this elder, it, the way he spoke about the world standards are not the Lord's standards, and that is so accurate. I can't tell you how many times, uh, like in law enforcement, when I went through an appeal process, and I was just like, "Do you realize that you're perpetuating bullies and that you're pushing forward a false policy or accusation of policy? You yourselves are falling victim to the very thing that you're accusing me of. You're projecting." And in the end, they're like, "Oh, no, well, we could just say whatever we want. We could just arbitrarily say that if we don't like something you do, that it's unprofessional." Um, and so I trust the Lord, like Joseph in Egypt. He trusts the Lord, keep going. And I know difficulties happen, things will come out anyways. It'll work out in the end, even if we die, just like uh, President Eyring says. He had confidence in, if all things go wrong, that they are covenant connected as a family and with the Savior. And it's funny that he mentions the dam breaking and everything, because I was at a meeting earlier this week where somebody was mentioning that, and how we in the communities surrounding took in people from Rexburg and that area out there into our own areas. And they asked, is this something that we're prepared to do again if a similar cataclysm or problem happens? And so that was a topic for discussion. And I just think it's very unique that this is being mentioned a few times. President Eyring also shared this story about being prepared to answer the call. This is something that President Eyring has shared multiple times. I've heard it a bunch of times from temple sealers, and I think it really is his story being. Uh, I think I've heard him shared it a couple times, and it's true. It goes back to that shockingly close. Who was it? The one of the early presidents of the church. They would call upon members of the church to leave on a mission. Not after they filled out an application, just call them, and they gave them the call, and they had to go. And he said there's people who eh, they were not prepared, and so I spoke on that previously when I did a response to the shockingly close video, and I forget the sister's name, but it is a shock to get a call for something and then recognize, are you prepared or are you not prepared? What do you need to be prepared? Um, President Eyring was seated. It was a pre-recorded message, but he was in attendance. Um, the preparation for this conference, he says, has been a sacred time for him. Uh, Here's a thought I wrote down. It's not what they said, but as he was explaining the different situations and talking about covenants in the temple, I thought about how, as we read the scriptures and we recognize there's temple symbols in the scriptures, in like a temple procession, even in like visions, like in Zechariah chapter 4 or Lehi's vision. I started thinking about Armageddon as a opposite temple procession for the wicked. That's the procession which they spiritually take. That we believe in the literal gathering of scattered Israel and a literal Christ coming back. And so we do look forward to the second coming. But have we had that second coming internally within us? Have we received the Comforter, um, that truth, that light? Um, so have we allowed ourselves to be cleansed? Have we taken that that journey ourselves through this temple procession? Now, eternally, we're still on it, but but are we truly internally have our integrity set on a true point and are unwavering from that? If we're tied to that true point, even if we get knocked off the path, we're still tethered and connected by covenant, and we continue further up until, and if we get the wavery, the waviness of getting knocked off the path is less dramatic. It's less of a hinge point, and you get closer and closer. Not less of a hinge point, but less of the outward range of motion off the covenant path. So as we get closer and closer, we get stronger and stronger, and it ultimately brings us close. So when people say truth, think of the North Star, true. It's the guide. It, it's you're locked on it. You're bound. You're bound to it. So whether you go one way or another, it's only if you deliberately rebel and take yourself off that truth, that is when you become lost. Anyways, I know some other people are going live. I don't want to detract from that. And I need to go get Fruit Loops for cereal necklaces. So have a great day.